play. So I think this will be kind of a formal information. And also I request all the speakers and participating to open their video and be muted when any speaker is sharing insight or presenting something. So I'm starting with Aswini. So Aswini, over to you.
Yes, a very warm welcome to all of you. Thank you for joining on this webinar. So as Arvindji has already briefed, I will be actually briefing about a few on this topic about transboundary renewable energy trade between India and Nepal. I have prepared a small presentation and I'll try to share it with you. Just hold on a minute. So are you able to see my screen?
Yeah. Yes.
Right. So quickly going, since that we have certain time limit. So as of now, transboundary energy trade is not a new subject for India, and India has been supplying electricity to Nepal for quite some time now. But yes, mostly it has been done through renewable, conventional sources of energy. However, renewable energy trade is still at a nascent stage, and as we all know that both India and Nepal has a good amount of potential in both renewable energy, especially Nepal in terms of hydro and India in terms of solar and wind. Uh, quickly, if you want to, if I just take you to the total demand, Nepal does not have a very high demand.
इधर हो गया है नीचे हो गया
So Nepal does not has a very high demand. It has a very meager demand of around 1.3 gigawatt, whereas Uttar Pradesh, Bihar has a combined demand of around 30 gigawatts. However, if you see the potential, Nepal alone has a hydro potential, technical hydro potential of around 86 gigawatt. However, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar equally has a potential of around 34 gigawatt, 35 gigawatt. So if you see, there is quite a good amount of correlation between the demand and the potential. And once it is explored, obviously there's the only option which will be left for both the countries is to trade electricity. Since Nepal has a very meager demand, the potential it has, it is really quite a lot. And if it is explored, it is not sufficient for Nepal to absorb it all. So the only option with them will be to actually explore or export the energy to the neighboring countries like India. And the most important benefit of it is that Nepal and Uttar Pradesh and Bihar, when we are talking about the sub-regional aspect, both means all these three means Nepal and India, particularly UP and Bihar, they have quite a lot amount of unexplored RE potential with them. If we see a total potential of around 34 gigawatt in UP and Bihar, of which less than 1 gigawatt has been explored so far. So still there is a potential of around 33 gigawatt which is to be explored. And other than the states like Rajasthan, MP, and Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, where solar energy has been explored and exploited to a considerable extent. Exploitation or exploration of renewable energy in these states and including Nepal is still at the nation stage. And owing to the geographical proximity with Nepal, UP and Bihar shares the longest boundaries with Nepal, right? And therefore it needs the shortest transmission lines to transmit the power from one country to another. And owing to the nature of hydro and solar, hydro which is generally peak in the times of wet season or the rainy season, we can say, and the solar which is peak in the terms of dry season. And simultaneously, Nepal also has a dearth in electricity at the time of dry season, and simultaneously the India has that shortage of electricity in the wet season. And this is the way they can complement each other. Nepal by supplying India the excess power being generated in the wet seasons, and India, particularly UP and Bihar, can supply the excess power in the dry seasons to the Nepal. And this somehow can also bring in the sustainable development in a clean way, and thereby also have or eliminate the energy security point of issues to considerable extent. So what can be done, right? So the most important thing is to look for an economic option, since both needs to meet its demand. Both the countries need to maintain the access of electricity to considerable extent. So the most feasible and the economic option for them is to import electricity. And recently, a mechanism such as MBED, a market-based energy dispatch, came forward, where bilateral or the long-term supply is going to be routed through it. Eventually, this would be helping the theme or the trade. They were bringing the cost of power for both the countries and being beneficial to both of them. So India has been importing electricity to Nepal for quite some time now. So there is technical infrastructure, but to enhance that infrastructure, we need to invest or enhance the increase the infrastructure investment over the times to come. Because as you see, the potential is huge, and therefore the transmission potential will also increase. There is also a provision of open access. We all know that it exists in India, but its operation has always been in question. But if smooth open access is being provided in both the countries, then it will definitely boost the cause, and it will also benefit, or it will also attract the investors to actually come and invest in respective countries. And to have a more regional power trade, or a power pool or an association of such kind, can actually boost in strengthening the system and creating more reliability in the system, and to supplement it with trading rules and codes, obviously, which is required. So India has certain regulations and grid codes with them, but Nepal still needs to frame these things. So Nepal does not have any Nepal does not have any Nepal does not have any guidelines for transboundary power trade as of now. Nor does it have any regulation as of now. Both the countries shall come forward with some kind of joint mission where to explore actually the RE potential, right? With some facilitating regulations or guidelines to enable the theme. Obviously, infrastructure development is required, because it would be enable the transmission of electricity to the extent which we are assuming, right? So infrastructure development overall, with the overall in years, it needs to increase, particularly in Nepal, UP, and Bihar. So to drive more players into the trade, there also needs to be created some financial propositions such as MBED, open access, or a level playing field for the investors to come and actually invest in the states. So for facilitation of the transboundary power trade, it is essential to have some harmonized operation procedures in both the countries. And that is where a power pool or some sort of association can be considered, where these things is actually eased out for international market, for players to actually enter the international market, thereby helping the maintaining the project timeline as well. So all the so that all what you say whatever difficulties there exist can be resolved at the earliest. And to take the concept forward, obviously a series of subnational energy dialogue needs to be done, so that this momentum is created. Stakeholders can be capacitated, And institutions like SEED, IRADE, and other CSOs media can play actually a major role in taking this theme forward, which will in turn bring out the robust subnational energy trade policy in a collaborative way. So this is the theme which we are going forward, and we hope we have a fruitful discussion over this time. Thank you. Arvindji, over to you. You're mute.
Arvind, you're muted.
Arvindji,
You
you're
have to
mute.
unmute yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry for that. What I'm saying, one thing is we can move on to the panel discussion. And before that, formally, I request to you all to open your video so that we can have a kind of a recording as well and also the photo snaps. And before moving on to the panel, let me also add some of the things that CSIA Foundation in the past years have been constructively engaged with a diverse stakeholder from both sides of the fences to promote sub-national energy trade between these two great nations. So in last couple of years, SEED and CSIA Foundation has organized a stakeholder roundtable session, conferences and media meeting, Patna and Kathmandu, to build momentum and facilitate the process to assign a new bilateral relation. So India and Nepal also face same set of the challenges in terms of eradicating poverty, providing energy access to millions of the masses, and moving on to sustainable development pathway. So in such backdrop, the trans-boundary energy trade on renewable energy between these two nations has limitless possibility. So if you look at the trajectory of this energy trade, so India and Nepal have moved from the narratives of power development to energy exchange to energy trade with business sense for mutual benefit, which can have a very good impact on both sides of the fences and also promote a deeper engagement between these nations. So within the realm of trans-boundary trade, an exciting opportunity has emerged. Bihar and the UP, these two states which shares longest boundary in terms of the Nepal, as Asuni has rightly pointed out. So they have a very good geographical proximity, suitably fit for interconnection and transmission lines, and with capitalizing on each other's infrastructure and energy sources. So with this note, I call Mr. Asutosh Sharma, Senior Research Analyst at IRADE, to share his insights on this entire thing and how this idea of energy trade can go in a new direction. Over to you, Asutosh.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good morning to everyone. And first of all, I'd like to say that IRADE is working extensively on this cross-border energy trade in the SAARC region. And Mr. Pankaj Batra, who is here with us, he is heading that project. So we'll hear more from him when there will be a discussion, and I'm hopeful that he will enrich our knowledge. But with my limited knowledge, I'd like to say that it's a very good forum, and thank you for inviting me. As said by Ashwani earlier, that the power sector scenario in India and Nepal is very different. For instance, where India, the peak demand is 177 gigawatt, the peak demand is Nepal only around 1.5 gigawatt. India has installed capacity of 371 gigawatt, and Nepal has installed capacity of barely 1182 megawatt, mainly driven by the hydro sector and renewable sector, majorly by hydro, which is 95%. So now the question is that the trade has actually been taken place in the past between India and Nepal, and majority of this trade was one-way flow where India was supplying electricity to Nepal. However, in the recent year, the export from Nepal had also started reaching to India. And if I'm correct, in the year 2018-19, Nepal had supplied 74 gigawatt of electricity to the Indian state of Bihar. However, Nepal remains a net importer, and the imported energy accounts for nearly 37% of their energy distribution supply. Now, the renewable energy importance increases when India has a plan for 175 gigawatt of renewable energy by 2022 alone. And already, if we look at the MNRE data, we have nearly 28 gigawatt of solar energy, grid connected solar energy by the end of March 2019. The drawback of solar energy is that there is a great variability during the daytime, as well as it is not available during the night. However, for a stable grid operation, we'll require mix of different sources of generation for handling the variability of generation from the solar energy. And therefore, there is a need to have a balancing source of energy, which definitely can be provided by a country like Nepal, which has a potential of 40 gigawatt of economically viable and technically feasible potential of 40 gigawatt hydro generation. Now, why this has not taken place despite this potential? Because if we see at the Nepal energy demand, it is merely the peak demand is merely 1.5 gigawatt. And in absence of any trade happening, there is no scope or economic benefit for the generation company to start exploring this opportunity. So, if a trade, both India and Nepal need each other. India needs to balance its solar energy with renewable energy during the nights as well as during the monsoon season. And Nepal also requires India because they need a place to sell this excess potential energy which will be generated in the coming future. So this is the case. Now the problem with the Nepal hydro generation is that, first of all, there is lack of investment. Investor has no benefit to invest. And then the second is that the second is that mainly the hydro generation is run of the river project. So the generation is quite high during the wet season, that is from May to October, and then the generation falls during the dry season, which is from October to May. So, whereas in India, the solar energy generation is low during the monsoon season and higher during the dry season. So the other aspect of this hydro generation in Nepal is that 90% of their hydro generation is run of the river project, with only 10% hydro generation having this storage capacity. Now, to have a smooth transmission, Nepal needs the peaking run of the river project. So when peaking run of the river project requires that, so in the daytime they can operate at a low generation level, and when during the night there is a high demand, they can switch to high generation from the same project, from the same plant. So this is what is needed in Nepal, because in India during the daytime there will be a surplus solar energy generation and requirement of where India can export to Nepal during the daytime, whereas during the night time, to balance this solar energy deficit, they will be requiring higher energy, electricity, which can be provided from these peaking ROR plants. Also, Nepal needs to invest more in the storage, so that during the dry season also there is some balance which can be matched. The second is to, well, if you see, I'm coming, so that's the 2 point. Then the third point is that, yeah, we are exploring that whether UP and Bihar can have this opportunity to generate the solar energy required by Nepal, and that can be developed in Bihar and UP. Definitely there is 34 gigawatt potential assessed for this generation, but however the realized is only nearly 1 gigawatt of solar energy, which is grid connected in UP and Bihar. So work needs to be done both on the India and the Nepal side, where Nepal needs to do more on picking ROR plants and storage plants. India needs to focus more on these neighboring two states to develop solar energy generation to realize their potential. And definitely this trade can make them possible because the transmission loss will be very less if you supply from Nepal and UP, sorry, Bihar and UP. And then there have been some progress. If you see, it's not that India and Nepal had signed this power trading agreement in 2014. And after that, the investment in Nepal hydro projects have become lucrative because the investor have an option to sell the excess power supply to India. So this is a good move, and slowly it is progressing where Mr. Batra sir can have more insight on this. The second thing is that, and another thing is that if we see the energy bank, so India and Nepal both have agreed to go for an energy bank. So energy bank basically says that during the monsoon wet season, Nepal will generate the energy to Nepal will provide energy, export energy to India, whereas during the dry season, India will supply supply the energy to Nepal. So there, the CERC and all are working on the nitty-gritties to how they to make this possible. These are the opportunities, and there are challenges in terms of investment, and then there are challenges in terms of infrastructure. Rightly said. For example, there is a Tanakpur Mahendranagar transmission line, which is 50 MVA, having a 50 MVA transformer, which needs to be upgraded to 100 MVA to make this trade facilitation happen, both bi-directional trade happen. So transmission network across the border electricity rate is inadequate, and capacity of existing substation needs to be improved, whereas we need more such substations for a smooth transmission of electricity. Well, the other challenge is the policy, and there needs to be harmonization of policy and regulation across border, which is very important. The most important, which I feel, that since there will be a balance, the India and Nepal will be balancing between the hydro and solar energy. Therefore, they need to assess the daily fluctuation in supply and demand so that the transmission remains smooth. So mechanism needs to be devised how to manage this daily fluctuation in supply and demand. Political stability in both Nepal and India, and good relationship between the two countries is very important for any trade to happen. So this is what is from my side. Thank you.
Thank you, Asutosh ji. So what we can deduce from this entire insight sharing and some of the opinions that is floated by Asutosh ji, that there are exciting numbers that is coming from both sides, from UP, Bihar, and also Nepal side on across the fences, and also to look at how the energy bank or some of the institutional mechanism that is coming in place can facilitate the trade. So to move towards a diversified portfolio of energy options, the best approach to share the untapped energy resources with the neighbors. And another is sub-national trade is need of the hour for minimizing the fresh investment on or recurring cost on erecting new infrastructure, so that helping the countries to see more influx of foreign investment in the existing transmission lines or some of the things that is already in place. So if you look at increased availability of power, that will also lead to increase in household consumption, increased production means more numbers of operating firms. So these are some of the things which has been highlighted by Asutosh ji, apart from some problem analysis and also the way ahead. And he has also rightly situated some of the things, that the political thing across the border and also the historical relationship. So I think one of panel members is very much more onto this in terms of the expertise. So I'm calling upon Mr. Chandrakishore Jha. He is a very senior journalist and very reputed name in media as well. He has also participated in earlier roundtables. So I'm calling him, or also I'm situating the debate around how this historical relations has many things in place in terms of the some of the things which has happened in recent time in Indo-Nepal relation. But we will situate more onto the energy or the electricity part or the business part, how this can be channelized more onto the, and what are the things that are the low hanging fruits that can be catched or that can be tapped. So over to you, Chandrakishore Jhaji. I'm also, I need to again introduce him that he is also very known columnist for Kantipur Daily. It is one of the largest daily from Nepal. And if I'm not making a mistake, Chandrakishore Jhaji based in Birganj, Nepal. So over to you, Chandrakishore Ji.
धन्यवाद। नमस्कार, मैं अभी बेरीगंज से हूँ। जैसा कि पूर्व वक्ताओं ने कुछ बात को कहा है, मैं उसी के केंद्र में रखते हुए अपनी बात को आगे बढ़ाऊंगा। मेरी आवाज आप लोग सुन रहे हैं?
जी जी।
हाँ। तो मैं अभी बेरीगंज बॉर्डर की एक शहर है और नेपाल की आर्थिक राजधानी के रूप में जानी जाती है। तो मैं जिस समय हम लोग ये बात कर रहे हैं, ठीक उसी समय में इस इलाके में अर्थात कि नेपाल और भारत के सीमाई इलाकों में, उत्तर भारत के इलाकों के ये उत्तर प्रदेश, बिहार से जुड़ा हुआ नेपाल के हिस्सों में बाढ़ है कतिपय जगहों में। अभी कोरोना का है, बीरगंज में ही अभी कर्फ्यू लागू हुई है। पिछले 3 रोज में 12 लोग मर गए हैं। काफी सेंसिटिव इलाका है। और जब बाढ़ और कोरोना की बात होती है तो ओपन बॉर्डर का बात होता है, क्योंकि जब लॉकडाउन हुआ, बॉर्डर सील कर दी गई, दोनों तरफ से लोग फंस गए। ठीक इसी बीच में कोरोना टाइमिंग में नेपाल और भारत, 2 राज्यों का जो संबंध है अर्थात कि दिल्ली और काठमांडू, हमारी जन जन की संबंध है, पीपल टू पीपल रिलेशन है। लेकिन 2 देशों का आज के मुल्क में सार्वभौम देशों के संबंध के जोड़ने का काम, निर्धारण करने का काम बहुत हद तक 2 राज्यों का होता है, 2 केंद्र का होता है। तो दिल्ली और काठमांडू के संबंध में अभी कुछ रिक्तताएं हैं, कुछ दूरियां पड़ी हुई है। लेकिन हम लोग जन संबंध की बात करते हैं और यह बात पटना से हो रही है, दिल्ली से नहीं हो रही है, और यह कोई सरकारी प्रतिष्ठान से नहीं हो रही है। तो मैं भी कोई सरकारी, मेरी अभिव्यक्ति तो होगी, कोई सरकारी नहीं होगी, न कोई मेरी, और मैं जन स्तर की बात जो ग्राउंड में रहकर, मैं एक एक्सपर्ट भी नहीं हूँ, लेकिन एक नजदीक से नेपाल भारत संबंध को देखता रहा हूँ। तो विभिन्न पहलुओं में एक पहलू हमारा आज का ये विषय भी है। तो इसलिए अभी जन संबंध को लेकर जनता के तह पर संवाद होने से ही निश्चित रूप में कल के दिनों में दिल्ली और काठमांडू भी नजदीक आएंगे और जनता की अपेक्षाओं और आकांक्षाओं को अनुवाद करने के लिए वो बाध्य होंगे। इसलिए भी यह संबंध का, इस संवाद का महत्वपूर्ण है। और जब भी हम आर्थिक विकास की बात करते हैं नेपाल की तरफ से, तो भारत प्रति की हमारी नीति क्या है, हमारी धारणा क्या है, हमारी का मतलब नेपाल की क्या धारणा है, तो वह भारत होता है। इसलिए भारत हम महत्व देते हैं क्योंकि अत्यधिक बाजार और जनसंपर्क हमारा है। इसलिए नेपाल पे एक कहावत है कि, और एक नई नैरेटिव है कि जन संबंध के साथ साथ अब जल संबंध पर बात करना होगा, क्योंकि जल संबंध उन्नत होगा तभी हमारे जीवन में समृद्धि आएगी, और समृद्धि होगा तो शांति होगा। क्योंकि भारत में भी उत्तर जो भारत है वहाँ जनघनत्व भी काफी है, लेकिन गरीबी भी काफी है। कई राज्य होकर गुजरती है नेपाल के हिस्सा। तो रोटी बेटी के साथ साथ अब इलेक्ट्रिसिटी वाली संबंध जोड़ना पड़ेगा। नेपाल के और भारत के बीच में नैरेटिव है रोटी बेटी का संबंध। अब उसमें लोग कहते हैं कि नहीं, रोटी बेटी के साथ का इलेक्ट्रिसिटी को भी जोड़िए। तो लेकिन नेपाल में क्या है, जब भी जल स्रोत की, हाइड्रो पावर की बात होती है तो राष्ट्रवाद जो है यहाँ उठ जाता है। क्योंकि हमने पिछले समय में, वर्षों में कोशी का, गंडक का, शारदा का भारत की सरकार के साथ समझौता हुई, तो हुआ क्या, नेपाल ने बेच दिया, नेपाल को घाटा हुई। कई व्यवहारिक कठिनाइयां भी हैं, कई भारत सरकार की व्यवस्थापन में त्रुटियां भी हैं। इसके कारण से जिस तरह से इसका लाभ होना चाहिए वो नहीं हो पा रहा है। लेकिन यह बात भी सही है कि भारत का में जो मध्यम वर्ग का उत्थान हुआ है, उसके लिए जो आवश्यक सिंचाई है, शहर के लिए पानी है और विद्युत शक्ति की मांग है, वह नेपाल में अगर हाइड्रो पावर का बढ़िया से व्यवस्थापन हो तो उसका कारगर उपाय हो सकता है। और इसकी पूरा करने के लिए नेपाल काफी हद तक सक्षम भी है। लेकिन नेपाल भीतर की आंतरिक निर्बलता और प्राविधिक आक्रमणता के कारण से ये कहने में कोई हिचक नहीं है कि हम भारत के साथ नेगोशिएट नहीं कर पा रहे हैं। हम ग्राउंड पर की रियलिटी क्या है और कैसे नेशन को फायदा होगा, उस पर हमें कैसे समझदारी करनी चाहिए, वो काम नहीं हो पा रहा है। दूसरी मुद्दा है कि जलवायु परिवर्तन का असर हम दोनों तरफ भुगत रहे हैं और हिमालय क्षेत्र भी भुगत रहा है। और हिमालय का क्षेत्र पर असर पड़ने का मतलब है कि पूरे उत्तर भारत पर पड़ेगा, नेपाल के तराई का हिस्सा भी जहाँ मैं अभी हूँ। तो जलवायु परिवर्तन के जो मुख्य स्थिति देखी गई है, क्षेत्रीय कारणों में गाड़ी की धुआं, पारंपरिक चूल्हा, सूखा का जलाव, बाकी अन्य भी कारण है, मैं उस विषय में नहीं जाना चाहूंगा। लेकिन हिमालय जो यहाँ माउंट एवरेस्ट जिसे हम सगरमाथा कहते हैं, उसकी वायुमंडल में अत्यधिक मात्रा में जमा हरित गृह प्रवाह को कम करने वाला गैस हटाकर, अर्थात कि डिकार्बनाइजेशन और पर्यावरण संरक्षण से संभव कार्बन दहन में आधारित विश्वव्यापी आर्थिक विकास पथ का नवीकरणीय ऊर्जा में रूपांतरण जरूरी है। अभी पिछले कई महीनों पहले चीन के राष्ट्रपति भी आए थे, वो पहले भारत गए, भारत के बाद नेपाल आए, तो यहाँ भी यह नवीकरणीय ऊर्जा में रूपांतरण की बात उठी। लेकिन यह व्यावहारिक रूप में कैसे संभव होगा? हिमालय क्षेत्र का पारिस्थितिकीय प्रणाली संवर्धन, इस रूपांतरण का अभिन्न हिस्सा होना चाहिए, लेकिन इस पर भारत, चीन और नेपाल के बीच में जिस तरह से बृहद समझदारी होनी चाहिए वो नहीं हो पा रहा है। और हम नेपाल में देखा सीखी विकास कर रहे हैं, जैसे अन्य मुल्क कर रहे हैं वैसे ही हम विकास कर रहे हैं। इसका उदाहरण मैं देता हूँ कि नवीकरणीय ऊर्जा का भाग बढ़ाने के बदले नेपाल खनिज ईंधन वितरण की गुत्थी में फंसता जा रहा है। अभी भारत सरकार के सहयोग से कुछ पहले मोतिहारी अमलेखगंज खनिज ईंधन आपूर्ति पाइपलाइन का निर्माण किया गया। अब उसको क्या है, कुछ और एक्सटेंशन करके छिपन की मध्य तराई तक ले जाने की बात हो रही है। मेरी आवाज क्लियर है ना?
जी जी
जी जी। तो उससे नवीकरणीय ऊर्जा का भाग बढ़ाने वाले के बदले जो नेपाल का खनिज ईंधन वितरण है उसका पाइपलाइन हम लोगों ने बनाया है। इससे हो क्या रहा है कि देखने से कि नेपाल की जो ऊर्जा यात्रा है वो पश्चिमगामी है, वो पीछे की तरफ जा रही है, क्योंकि इससे खनिज ईंधन आयात खर्च ही नहीं, नेपाल का कार्बन उत्सर्जन परिणाम और दर दोनों की वृद्धि हो रही है। यद्यपि अभी नेपाल का उत्सर्जन विश्व कार्बन बजट का 0.025% मात्र ही है, लेकिन विश्व कार्बन बजट में तात्विक अंतर इससे नहीं होगा। लेकिन नेपाल की पेरिस अभिसंधि लक्ष्य पर क्या असर होगा? हमारी अंतर्राष्ट्रीय प्रतिबद्धता अर्थात नेपाल की अंतर्राष्ट्रीय प्रतिबद्धता का क्या होगा? गत वर्ष नेपाल ने करीब 214 अरब का तेल आयात किया। 214 अरब का मतलब हुआ, ये नेपाली करेंसी बोल रहा हूँ, 1 रुपया का 160 होता है, 100 का 160 होता है, तो आप इससे इंडियन करेंसी में आप समझ सकते हैं। तो यह रकम व्यापार घाटा का बड़ा अंश है। तो खनिज ईंधन में निर्भरता से नेपाल की अर्थ प्रणाली में दो प्रकार से घात हो रहे हैं। एक आयात बजट हो रहा है और दूसरा वायु प्रदूषण हमारी बढ़ रही है। दूसरा ये देखना होगा कि उत्सर्जक मुल्कों में चीन और अमेरिका के बाद में भारत सबसे बड़ा उत्सर्जक मुल्क है। यह एक ऐतिहासिक जिम्मेवारी है भारत के ऊपर कि इसको हम कैसे घटाएंगे। लेकिन जिस तरह का संबंध बढ़ता जा रहा है नेपाल सरकार की तरफ से पिछले समयों में, तो हम देख रहे हैं कि यह बढ़ाने वाली बात हो रही है। तो नवीकरणीय ऊर्जा भारत की प्राथमिकता नहीं है ऐसी बात नहीं है, लेकिन कोयला अभी भी ऊर्जा का मुख्य स्रोत है भारत। तो डिकार्बनाइजेशन की यात्रा में हमारी भूमिका क्या होगी, नेपाल सरकार की क्या होगी, भारत सरकार की क्या होगी और जन स्तर पर इसका क्या होगा, और इसमें जन स्तर पर जन संबंध या जनता पर क्या इसका इम्पैक्ट पड़ रहा है, वो हमें विमर्श की विषय होनी चाहिए। क्योंकि जलवायु परिवर्तन का प्रभाव जो है वो अब वास्तविक क्या है, यह एक परिकल्पना या अवधारणा में नहीं रह गई। तो इसके लिए हमें लेकिन तमाम विमर्शों के बावजूद भी नेपाल में भी यह डिस्कोर्स चल रहा है, लेकिन हरित अर्थतंत्र जो है अभी भी सुस्त गति में। लेकिन जिस तरह से नेपाल में जल विद्युत की मांग बढ़ती जा रही है, अगर नेपाल में उसका उत्पादन हो तो हम नेपाल में खपत भी कर सकते हैं। जैसे कि विद्युतीय सवारी साधन हो सकता है, इलेक्ट्रिकल रेलवे हो सकती है, इलेक्ट्रिकल रोपवे हो सकती है, विद्युतीय चूल्हा हो सकती है। जब हम बात कर रहे हैं, आज भी नेपाल और भारत के जिस इलाकों में हम लोग हैं, बॉर्डर इलाके में, बॉर्डर के दोनों तरफ आज भी लोग गाँव में लोग अंगीठी पर जलावन पर लोग खाना बनाते हैं और महिलाएं उसके भुक्तभोगी होती है। तो उसके हेल्थ पर क्या इम्पैक्ट पड़ता है। हालांकि भारत सरकार ने इसके दिशा में कई पहल भी किए हैं, लेकिन आज भी बड़ी आबादी जो है वो गांव की ग्रामीण ट्रेडिशनल लोग खाना पका रहे हैं, तो इससे हेल्थ पर भी असर पड़ रहा है। वह एक यथार्थ है, वो एक रियलिटी है, उसे हम इग्नोर नहीं कर सकते, लेकिन उस दिशा में हमें बढ़ना है। तो दूसरा, तो नेपाल में केमिकल फर्टिलाइजर उद्योग हम बना सकते हैं, नेपाल में भी खपत हो सकता है विद्युतीय ऊर्जा का, और हमें बचे तो हम भारत को भी दे सकते हैं। क्योंकि जब भी हम जल विद्युत की बात करते हैं तो भारत में आश्रित होते हैं, भारत को देखते हैं। लेकिन क्या है कि जब भी यह बात होती है तो राजनीति बात अधिक हो जाती है और व्यावहारिक रूप से नहीं हो सकता है। और यही कारण है कि आज 6-7 दशक से नेपाल भारत विद्युत के संबंध में जो बात होना चाहिए वो नहीं हो रहा है। और आज भी बिजली के मामला में हम आयात मुक्त नहीं हो पाए हैं। नेपाल कहने के लिए हम लोग बचपन से ही पढ़ते हैं कि नेपाल जल विद्युत के क्षेत्र में विश्व में ब्राजील के बाद दूसरा संभावना वाला मुल्क है। यहाँ करीब 83,000 मेगावाट जल विद्युत उत्पादन की क्षमता है। लेकिन असलियत ये है कि हम आपसे विद्युत ले रहे हैं, अर्थात भारत से हम विद्युत ले रहे हैं, स्थिति में है, आयात मुक्त की स्थिति में नहीं है। तो हमारी निर्भरता कैसे बढ़ेगी, कैसे हम वातावरण को बचेंगे, कैसे हिमालय पर अगर वातावरणीय जलवायु का प्रभाव पड़ता है तो यह पूरे गंगेटिक प्लेन बांग्लादेश और नेपाल पर हिस्से पर पड़ेगा, सिक्किम पर पड़ेगा, तो एक बहुत बड़ी आबादी इससे प्रभावित होगा। इसलिए भी हमें जल विद्युत ऊर्जा का पर काम करना होगा जैसे मुझे लगता है, और इसमें जन संवाद से एक दिशा तय होगी। जल विद्युत ऊर्जा आयोजना जो है स्वच्छ ऊर्जा के भीतर पड़ता है, इसलिए जल विद्युत कार्बन व्यापार में रखना होगा। इससे विद्युत केंद्र सब रुग्ण नहीं होगा और स्वस्थ होगा। विद्युत की बाजारीकरण और निर्यात के लिए निजी क्षेत्र को अनुमति देना होगा। आज भी नेपाल में एक कहावत है कि झोला में खोला, खोला कहते हैं नदी को, रिवर्स को। तो आज भी बहुत सारा प्राइवेट सेक्टर को दिया गया है, लेकिन वो पॉकेट में है, उसकी प्रैक्टिकल नहीं हो पा रही। कई तरह के प्रशासनिक अड़चने हैं। तो जितना लोगों ने स्वीकृति ले चुका है उस अनुपात में काम भी नहीं हो रहा है। भारत की भी कई बड़ी कंपनियां यहाँ ने बड़ी नदियों में काम शुरू कर दी है, लेकिन राजनीतिक अंतर्विरोध, प्रशासनिक झमेला से उस समय पर पूरा नहीं हो पा रहा है, और उसके उत्पादन हम समय पर लेने की स्थिति में नहीं है। उसका लक्ष्य अभी भी दूर दिखाई पड़ता है। तो इन स्थितियों में हमें लगता है कि नेपाल में जल विद्युत का प्रयोग हो, और सोलार का दिशा में कुछ काम नेपाल में भी हो रहा है, और वाइंड एनर्जी के बारे में भी काम हो रहा है, लेकिन जिस अनुपात में होना चाहिए वो नहीं हो रहा है। अभी भी लोगों के दिमाग में, जमीन के लोगों का लगता है ये सोलार एनर्जी अभी भी महंगा है, खर्चीला पड़ता है शुरू में। इसको हम कैसे सस्ता करें, कैसे सहज करें, लोगों को जोड़े इससे, इस पर हमें ध्यान देना होगा। और नेपाल की पानी में जनता की लगानी, जब तक जनता इसमें अपनी इन्वेस्टमेंट नहीं होगा तो उसका ऑनरशिप नहीं होगा। पानी का मतलब उसे, हम ऊर्जा की बात तो है ही, बाढ़ व्यवस्थापन, सिंचाई, खाने खाने पीने वाले ड्रिंकिंग वाटर, सारी चीजें उसमें आती है। आज उत्तर भारत, बिहार में अब विस्तार तो नहीं हुआ क्योंकि पानी थोड़ा होता ही रहा, लेकिन लास्ट ईयर तो आप देखेंगे बिहार के उत्तरी हिस्सों में पानी की संकट हो गई। तो नेपाल में जहाँ पानी का देश कहा जाता है वहाँ पानी का संकट है, आपके बिहार में पानी का संकट है, नदियों की सतह बढ़ती जा रही है। इसके लिए भी हमें सोचना होगा कि पानी व्यवस्थापन में सारी बातें आती है, जहाँ बिजली भी एक उसका सह उत्पादन है या एक सेक्टरल विषय जैसा मुझे लगता है।
निर्किशोर सर, कुछ चीजें हम लोग क्वेश्चन आंसर सेशन में भी करेंगे। सो आपकी बात हम लोग ये कर रहे हैं। अगर हम लोग कुछ डिस्कशन को क्वेश्चंस के लिए रखें, अगर आपका कोई अगर इम्पोर्टेंट बिंदु है तो 1 मिनट में खत्म कर लें, उसके बाद हम अगले।
मुझे ये लगता है कि भारत की प्रशासनिक ऊहापोह और नेपाल की राजनीतिक कमजोरियां से संभावित लाभ से, विद्युतीय ऊर्जा के संभावित लाभ से हम वंचित होते रहे हैं। नेपाल में रेमिटेंस सबसे बड़ा उद्योग है। रेमिटेंस के बाद में कोई सबसे बड़ा उद्योग है, मैं बेहिचक कहना चाहता हूँ, वो है राजनीतिक उद्योग। और आपके यहाँ भी कोरोना के संकट में कोरोना व्यवस्थापन की काम कम हो रही है, राजनीति का काम अधिक हो रहा है। अगर हम जनता के मूलभूत सवालों पर ध्यान दें तो बेहतर होगा, जिसमें जल विद्युत ऊर्जा भी है, जल संसाधन का समुचित व्यवस्थापन भी है, जैसा मुझे लगता है।
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. And I'm also thankful to Chandrakishore sir to taking a very panoramic view of Indo-Nepal relation, and also emphasizing on people-to-people contact, which has been witnessed over the centuries or the civilization days. And also he has elaborated some of the things, some of the major hiccups that is coming into the path of green pathway in Nepal, particularly. If you look into the climate politics and so the climate change related impacts in the Himalayan region, which is very sensitive region, and that has also on UP as well in terms of the flood and all that. He has been rightly pointed out that decarbonization is the one way, and RE and the solar and the hydro, that is the main premise for the Indo-Nepal energy trade or relations. He has also emphasized some of the things on the water. Water is one of the very continuous issues in Indo-Nepal relation. But I think we have move on to the new territory where some of the things is also planning on the water, tapping the water resources. So hydro energy is there. We have already mentioned we have already seen some of the panels. The speaker are also talking about how that can be has a good effects on the foreign relation and also remittances and also the export earning for Nepal. So there are some of the things which have already pointed out by Chandrakishore ji. And since I think most of the people are familiar with Hindi, so I should not be transcribing all the points or all the things. Some of the pointers which he has already floated, I had just pointed out. So now let's move on to the new area, which is basically the developer enterprising or the RE business models. So we have Subodh ji. He is very associated with this industry body, Bihar Industry Association. and he is one of the person who has already been into our some of the conferences in Patna, and whenever we have some of the energy related thing, he has been very keenly participated, and some of the guidance and mentoring has been also coming from him. So I think since we are talking about how this entire RE development and this development point of view, enterprising activity on the side, our business perspective from the like the industry body. So that some of the points I think Subodhji will be floating on. So over to you, Subodhji.
हाँ जी, नमस्कार सभी भाई साहबों को। मेरी आवाज आ रही है सर?
आ रही है सर।
ये जैसे झा साहब ने काफी कुछ बहुत अच्छे तरीके से समझाया है। As we know that India and Nepal, we share almost 1751 किलोमीटर, तो करीब 1751 किलोमीटर का बॉर्डर है हमारा इंडिया और नेपाल के बीच में है सर। जैसा झा सर ने बताया कि हम लोगों का रोटी और बेटी का संबंध है, मीन्स बिजनेस और हमारा फैमिलियर संबंध है नेपाल से। नेपाल जो है तो एक हिंदू राष्ट्र है और हमारे मतलब हम लोगों से बहुत दिल से जुड़ा हुआ कंट्री है। और आपको ये भी जान रहे हैं कि हमारे भारत का जो सेना है, आर्मी, इंडियन आर्मी, वन गोरखा बटालियन इज देयर विच इज एंटायरली पीपल फ्रॉम नेपाल रिक्रूटेड देयर इज देयर। तो ये तो बताने की जरूरत नहीं है कि नेपाल हम लोगों के लिए कितना ज्यादा इम्पोर्टेंट है। हाँ, कुछ पॉलिटिकल कारण अभी कुछ हुआ है, जैसा झा साहब ने भी बताया है, अभी कुछ चाइना को लेकर कुछ समस्या है और हमको लगता है कि धीरे धीरे ठीक हो जाएगा। लेकिन इसका एक सबसे बड़ा प्रभाव, दुष्प्रभाव इसको कह सकते हैं कि ये पड़ रहा है कि ये बिजनेस रिलेशन को अफेक्ट करेगा ये जो है। और कभी भी बिजनेस जो है तो अनटिल अनलेस अगर स्टेबल गवर्नमेंट पॉलिसी नहीं है और अगर स्थिर सरकार नहीं है तो थोड़ा सा प्रॉब्लम होता है बिजनेस के अंदर में। लेकिन हमको लगता है कि ये कुछ दिनों में ये जो है तो धीरे धीरे ये नॉर्मल हो जाएगा। ये हमको मान के चलना चाहिए कि ये टेम्पोररी प्रॉब्लम है और ये बहुत दिन नहीं चलेगा ये जो है। और चूंकि हम लोगों का एक सदियों का रिलेशन है और ये कुछ ऐसे इतना जल्दी खत्म होने वाला भी नहीं है, तो जो भी छोटा मोटा प्रॉब्लम है हमको लगता है कि कुछ दिनों में सॉर्ट आउट हो जाना चाहिए। जैसे आज का जो हम लोगों का चर्चा है बेसिकली जो है कि हाउ मतलब सोलर एनर्जी, जो रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी, हाउ वी कैन प्रमोट। जैसे कि आज झा साहब has told कि अराउंड 80,000 मेगावाट का दैट हाइडल पावर पोटेंशियल इज देयर, that and hardly Nepal is producing around 800 megawatt from their hydel power project, and now even they are even entire their energy requirement is not being met by hydel district. So India is still, I think India is exporting around 400 megawatt of power to Nepal. तो जैसा है सर कि एक बिहार और यूपी एक दो स्टेट है जो कि नेबरिंग स्टेट है सर, और लकीली बिहार और यूपी दोनों ही स्टेट है जो कि अच्छा मतलब सोलर जोन में आता है, मतलब जहाँ पे कि हम लोगों का बहुत अच्छा पोटेंशियल है सोलर पावर जनरेशन का। तो वो एक हम लोग इसको देख सकते हैं कि किस तरह से मतलब हम लोग सोलर पार्क अगर हम लोग बॉर्डर एरिया में अगर हम लोग प्रमोट करते हैं तो ये देख कर कि नेपाल का रिक्वायरमेंट देखते हैं। तो इसमें एक जो अभी जो कठिनाई आ रही है कि जैसे कि ओपन एक्सेस का एक हम लोग का इंडिया में बहुत बड़ा प्रॉब्लम चल रहा है। ओपन एक्सेस खास करके सोलर एनर्जी में जो है तो बहुत मुश्किल से मिलता है, ये गवर्नमेंट नहीं अलाउ करती है। तो एक थोड़ा इसको अगर हम सही करें और अगर इसको हम अगर ट्रांस बॉर्डर अगर हम लोग करने का कोशिश करते हैं, ट्रांस बॉर्डर से मेरा ये कहने का मतलब है कि हम लोग अगर सोलर पावर प्लांट इफ यू आर पुटिंग इन इंडिया, सॉरी बिहार यूपी बॉर्डरिंग नेपाल, तो एक बड़ा पावर जो है सो हम लोग जो है सो नेपाल को हम लोग दे सकते हैं उस सोलर पावर से जो है। और दूसरा जो है सो इन बार्टर सिस्टम भी हम कर सकते हैं कि उनसे हम हाइडल पावर प्रोजेक्ट लें और यहाँ से हम लोग सोलर पावर हम लोग दे सकते हैं। तो एक ये जो है सो ओपन एक्सेस जो एक बहुत बड़ा बाधा है हमारे इंडिया के साइड से, हमको लगता है कि इसको हम लोगों को देखना पड़ेगा। पॉलिसी में ये है कि ओपन एक्सेस है, इवन पॉलिसी में अगर हम देखें आरी पॉलिसी में तो ये इट इज अवेलेबल बट होता नहीं है। मतलब आप अगर जाइए उसका ओपन एक्सेस के परमिशन से जाइए तो 50 बहाना लगता है इनका जो है, तो बेसिकली होता नहीं। एक चीज और है जो कि नेपाल में जो हम देखे, एक दो बार हम लोग को घूमने का मौका मिला, बहुत बार गए हैं, तो वहां पे जैसे जो हिली ट्रेन है तो वहां पे ग्रिड कनेक्शन करना बड़ा मुश्किल है। मतलब एक नेशनल ग्रिड टाइप का अगर चीज हो, अगर हम वहां पे सोलर पावर, जो डिसेंट्रलाइज सोलर पावर जिसको हम लोग बोलते हैं कि छोटा छोटा सिस्टम 500 मेगावाट, 1 किलोवाट का, 1 मेगावाट का, 2 मेगावाट का, और वो सेंट्रलाइज हो, मतलब एक गांव हो, एक विलेज हो, एक शहर को अगर हम लोग ये करके देखें, तो एक है कि हमारा जो है तो एक अच्छा एक सिस्टम बनाया जा सकता है। इसके ऊपर में हमको लगता है कि इसको देखना चाहिए। इसके अलावा जो है तो ये, और एक चीज है कि देखिए सर, बिजनेस तो तभी पॉसिबल है जब एक लेवल प्लेइंग फील्ड होगा। लेवल प्लेइंग फील्ड का मतलब ये हो गया कि हम दोनों तरफ की बात कर रहे हैं, नेपाल की भी बात कर रहे हैं, भारत की भी बात, बिहार की भी बात कर रहे हैं, मीन्स की इक्वल अपॉर्चुनिटी मिले। अगर सपोज कोई इन्वेस्टमेंट हमारे नेपाल से, सपोज इफ समबडी वांट टू इन्वेस्ट इन इंडिया, बिहार और यूपी में अगर लगाना चाहते हैं, या हमारा कोई आदमी बीरगंज और या वहां लगाना चाहता है, तो सेम अपॉर्चुनिटी अगर हम लोग गवर्नमेंट लेवल में अगर बैठकर अगर बात करके अगर इस तरह का ये कर सके कि अगर इक्वल अपॉर्चुनिटी मिलता है अगर बिजनेस का है, तो दोनों तरफ से ट्रांस बॉर्डर जो है इन्वेस्टमेंट आ सकता है, नेपाल के अंदर में भी आ सकता है और बिहार, यूपी, इंडिया में भी आ सकता है। इसके अलावा हमको लगता है कि एक हाइड्रो पावर है एक नेपाल का, जो कि जैसे झा सर ने बताया कि 80,000 मेगावाट का जनरेशन पोटेंशियल है। अगर उसको अगर नेपाल कुछ इंडिया की मदद से या किसी तरह से अगर इसको ये कर सकता है, तो एक बहुत बड़ा एक्सपोर्टर हो सकता है। इस रीजन का हम समझते हैं कि मैक्सिमम पावर नेपाल अगर हम लोग टैप करते हैं तो काफी बड़ा पावर का जो है तो ये नेपाल के थ्रू हम लोग सोर्स कर सकते हैं। और एक जो बिहार में, जो बिहार इधर जो ईस्टर्न इंडिया में जो बाढ़ आती है, ये भी काफी हद तक कंट्रोल हो जाएगा। हमको लगता है कि यही सब मोटा मोटा चीज है जो कि अभी तक कवर नहीं हुआ था। बाकी तो हमको लगता है कि सब चीज कवर किए हुए हैं, तो हमको लगता है कि बहुत मेरा बोलना ठीक नहीं रहेगा। थैंक यू सर।
Thank you, Subodh ji. Since you are also talking in Hindi, so I should be some of the things mentioned by you, I will be translating. So largely, he was basing on like some of the historical relations of Indo-Nepal and Roti Beti, and also business. So business is a new angle that is coming into play when we look at the idea of Indo-Nepal energy, subnational energy trade. So cashing in onto like what we have access in our regional level, like in terms of the Bihar and UP, and also what we have in terms of Nepal. So we can have that kind of exchange and also some business benefits. So he has also mentioned some of the things related to some of the relationship which has not been up to the mark, but I think these are some of the things which has its own course of time, and it will have a kind of more onto the business segment, since there are so many problems from across the border in terms of poverty, then the sustainable development goals and all that, where some of the green energy or the green development mechanism can play a good role in minimizing some of the environmental impacts and all that. And he has also mentioned some of the business related thing, some of the problems in the path of the business or some of the promotion and all that. So we will talk about some of the things in terms of the policies, some of the things, the bottlenecks, which in terms of the regulatory, or some of the things in terms of what we can do that can leverage this what we have built over the years. So I'm looking into the next panel member, Mr. Dr. Abhijit Ghosh. He's also assistant professor at AN Sinha Institute of Social Sciences, Patna. So over to you, sir. We are happy to you.
You are unmute, sir.
No, unmute, sir. You are unmute, sir. Please, sir.
Still, you are not mute.
Just tap on the mic, sir. That is the symbol of mic. You can have that unmute. Then you can listen. You can.
Right.
Yeah. Go ahead, sir.
I think we are unable to hear you, sir. Still no voice, sir, from your side. No, sir.
Abhijit, sir, can you go on the mic section, mute section, and
जुनैद मोबाइल बज रहा है। जुनैद अंकल को दे दी मोबाइल।
हेलो,
अभी आया था आपका आवाज।
आवाज आया था?
हाँ अभी आया है थोड़ा सा। हाँ, but you'll have to speak little louder. Mic के नजदीक।
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
So I would like to highlight on 3-4 facts, 3-4 issues. Before that, I would like to highlight on 2-3 data. Being landlocked country, Nepal largely rely on transit access from neighboring countries to participate in the international trade. You know all. For Nepal, the nearest seaport is Kolkata. And the latest data available, Nepal's major trade with India, bilateral trade with India accounts for almost 66.5% of Nepal total trade with the world. And transit arrangements between India and Nepal are mainly governed by two main legal instruments. Number one, India-Nepal Treaty of Trade and Transit, and India-Nepal Rail Service Agreement. You already, it has been discussed. And what I want to say, we cannot isolate Indo-Nepal cooperations or Indo-Nepal trade, the larger geopolitical situations. It is highly interlinked. And also at the same time, I believe there are many issues which can be solved, which can be covered from a sub-regional perspective. I have worked Indo-Nepal cooperation through Bihar sub-regional perspective, and we identified some issues, some areas where we can extend our cooperations. We can solve many issues. Even we can enhance the amount of trade between India and Nepal. Therefore, when in 1985, SAARC was basically established to remove the barriers, to make easier for trade. But after almost 35 years, there are some issues, gray areas, which needs attention, which needs to be solved. Also, SAPTA was created after that. There are some issues. Suppose for actual documentary evidence that a businessman needs to do, it takes almost 15 days. But researchers have mentioned it may take 1 or 2 days. So this barrier could be eased, could be solved. And I have visited 10 transit points of Bihar, between Bihar and Nepal. You will be surprised to know the area which needs hardly 1 hour to visit, from Roxol to Bargania, it takes almost 3 to 4 hours. Horrible situations of road transport, etc. Horrible situations. And Roxol is the biggest transit point. If you go anytime on transit point, you will definitely come across this experience. So this needs to be attended, this needs to be solved, this needs to be improved, particularly road transport. Now, it is already discussed point. I would like to mention 2 encouraging areas from where we can take lesson. One is the trade between Indo-Nepal through Bihar. COMFET, you have heard the name of COMFET, which is known as Sudha. If we look at the data over the years, the trade between Indo and Nepal, or COMFET trade with Indo-Nepal, has been increasing. In 2010-11, it was 6767216 kilogram. In 2010-11, in actual figure, which has increased in 2011-12, 7273715. So far, Sudha's data is concerned, this is the trade between India and Nepal through Bihar, and relaxes many conditions. So we have to look at the other aspects, we have to look other areas where intervention is required politically, and at the government level, which can reduce the barrier, which can remove the barrier, and at least can reduce the time taken for the approval. Number one. Number two, as the time is limited, I would like to mention one gray as well as encouraging area. I am not repeating the how we can improve our trade through tourist spot, Hindu tourist or area or Buddhist tourist area. But what I can say, Bihar in Indo-Nepal water resource management, this is untapped opportunities. Transboundary rivers and water management are governed by treaties and Indo-Nepal cooperation, which date back to 1954. With the signing of the Kosi Agreement, management of the Kosi River flow has been central to the central. Please highlight, I would like to highlight this word, central to the Indo-Nepal water cooperation arrangement. However, it is observed that the implementations of the Kosi Agreement has not been smooth, owing to flood in the Kosi region on every year basis, alternate year basis. Nepal is said to have been concerned about the several issues such as negligence in maintenance of embarkments by India and inadequate compensations for the damage to the environmental and displacement associated with the construction of dams and other works in the region. So as a result, these agreements between the two countries, India and Nepal, have disrupted water cooperation. At the same time, it has also been noted that water cooperation can be an effective antidote to the irritants in India-Nepal relations. Many researchers have mentioned. And the fact is, the construction of dam and barrage has multiple implications for the economy of Bihar. Please note, economy of Bihar and India. Nepal has a power potential of 84,000 megawatts, of which only 43,000 megawatts of hydropower potential is assumed to be economically viable and technically feasible. So this is the fact. Now the potential can be harnessed for the benefit of both the countries. While Nepal needs the Indian market for exporting hydropower, due to its growing energy demands, requires the resources of Nepal to meet its power deficit. So therefore, what we are discussing today is very important and significant event, and it can be explored in many ways, particularly through sub-regional perspective. Even organizer can sit with government of Bihar and can make out the limitations and so that it can be removed over the year. So this is the area that I would like to mention, that Kosi area is a very critical point for Indo-Nepal cooperations, and that needs to be addressed politically as well as sub-regionally. And what that cannot be isolated from geopolitical situations overall. So this is my point I would like to address. Thank you. Over to Arvindji.
Okay, thank you, sir. And to all the participants, we have opened for the question and answer session, and we have a couple of questions. But before that, since people have not floated much questions, there are only 2 or 3 questions, I think. So we will be taking up. In between, we have a very senior person from the IRADE Technical Director, Mr. Pankaj Batra. So I invite him to share his observation on this theme and the webinar, whatever we have discussed so far. So for a couple of minutes, so that we can gather some questions and then we can float it to the panel members. Over to you, Pankaj sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for inviting me for talking here. So we have been doing this. We have been in IRADE in this program of encouraging cross-border trade in South Asia, and so there is. I think a lot has been said about general relations between India and Nepal, and also about the the benefits of trade, there is actually a lot of benefit in trade between India and Nepal, or actually the whole South Asia region, because of the diversities in demand between these countries. What Ashutosh said was about the dry season, when there is less water available in Nepal, and Nepal power generation is predominantly hydro. So they are in a situation that, and this dry season happens in winter, when all the inflows into the rivers have reduced and the generation is not able to meet the full demand of Nepal. So this agreement, which is signed between India and Government of India and Government of Nepal on barter of power or in banking of power, that we give them when we have surplus, and they give Nepal gives to India when Nepal is in surplus. So Nepal has had a problem of water spilling, that's free energy going waste during the monsoon season, when there is not enough demand to offtake all the generation, whereas they have a shortage in winter. So this can be exploited very usefully, where Nepal can provide power during the time when they have excess, and Indian thermal power plants, which is predominantly coal-based, can be taken under maintenance, which is periodic, once a year. So it works fine for Nepal if they're able to barter this energy or do banking. But it would work for India also from the point of view of India is actually self-sufficient, but what we need is flexible generation, where we have about 45,000 megawatts of hydro in India, but maybe when we are going for more and more of renewables, we would need more and more of flexible generation, and Nepal can provide that. So what Ashutosh said was, most of these plants in Nepal are runoff river. So if they're runoff river, even if they're runoff river, but if they've got pondage of about 3-4 hours, it would work well. Now I don't know how much of these are pure runoff river without any pondage, and how many of these are with pondage. So if they can provide those 3-4 hours during winter, they can supply this power during the peak time for India, when the peak time comes in India, and India can supply during the day, during the off-peak time. So it also results in better operation of a thermal power plants, because when the peak increases, then that can come from hydro of Nepal, and these coal-based plants would operate more closer towards the most efficient part of the operation, which is closer to the maybe 80 to 90% level. So that's how India benefits, and also we would have the intermittency of wind. Solar is more predictable because it goes down maybe after 5 or 6 p.m. depending on the season, and that's the time when we would require hydro to fill up for this generation. We can of course ramp up a thermal generation to do that, but it's better to ramp up hydro, which is faster, and there's no loss of efficiency for hydro if it ramps up. So this can happen for solar, but for wind also, which fluctuates over the day. Although the peak wind normally in India comes around 4 p.m. If you take an all India basis, but then it fluctuates. It fluctuates, and sometimes can be unpredictable. And therefore, this quick ramp up and ramp down, which can happen in hydro plants, would be useful for this. And Nepal, if they do not have, if they want to go for wind and solar power, and they don't have so much potential, they can buy power from these plants based in India, because India has a huge potential of renewables. So it can work that way also. Similarly, Bangladesh is predominantly thermal. Therefore, Nepal and Bhutan are predominantly hydro, and Bangladesh and India are predominantly thermal, although Bangladesh is more gas-based. And of course, we have a plan to connect with Sri Lanka also, maybe in a few years. In principle, I think the agreement has been reached. When it happens, then the more you connect, the more optimum utilization of assets you have in South Asia region. And this is one of the regions which is lagging, because Europe has been connected for many, many years and has been operating successfully. And more nations now of East Europe are also joining into this European grid. There is also a connection in the Southeast Asian nations. So this is something where we need to strengthen our connection. And of course, if there is equitable benefits shared between all the countries of South Asia, then in spite of political differences which may crop up from time to time, economic reasons always take precedence. And therefore, these agreements would withstand. You still have even though UK, drew away from the European Union through Brexit, they still have the interconnections with Europe, and power continues to flow in both directions between these countries through undersea cables. So the economics always works. So I think this would withstand the political differences as and when if any, comes in between, because economics, as it says, it's benefit, and all countries benefit. I think that's all I like to say. There is, of course, there is a strong connection, which is Dhalkebar Muzaffarpur 400 kV line, which is presently charged at 220 kV and expected to be charged at 400 kV soon, where much more amount of power can flow through Nepal. I think Nepal is now, of course, able to feed much more power due to import at various points from India, but their own internal transmission interconnection is not so strong. So even if they want more power, they cannot probably take it to the places where they require it. But that is happening now. I think a backbone transmission line from east to west is planned and would take off. And once that happens, then the power from India at whichever point can flow throughout Nepal. So that's one, of course. And Nepal, of course, has all its own reasons for interconnection, because during monsoon season, even now they can export, whereas at that time the demand is low. But when they have many more plants which are under construction or under planning stage, when they come, they'll be able to find a market for the whole of all the countries of South Asia. So I think there's lots of benefits in trading and interconnections. We just have to take a balanced view of equitable benefits, and things will work for themselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Pankaj. You have briefly captured what the is going to float before us, and some of the things which I've already mentioned, which are part of the things we are also moving in the right and the same direction, and hopefully everything, some of the bottlenecks, some of the things will be solved in the matter of the time, and we are hopeful that this Indo-Nepal trade will be beneficial for both sides. So we are opening the question and session. So we have some questions. So I have question from Abhishek Pratap, an energy expert from us, sir, and also he has been a very prominent name in terms of the energy and power sector. So I will be floating his question because it's an open question. Any member from the panel can answer it. And then we will switch over to 3 more questions and that is addressed to every person in the panel. So I will start with what Abhishek Pratapji has said in terms of the question, and any member from the panel can answer it. So quote unquote, in present scenario of lowest trust level between Nepal and India, whether energy trade between both countries has any real possibility in near future? India's power demand in long-term point of view is flattening from the previous projection, and in Nepal, power demand is not rising. So this is the scenario we are witnessing in this case. So any panel member who are thinking that can answer this question, so it's open to them. Then we will have some more questions. So first this question, then rest of them.
So should I answer that?
Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, so yes, the demand growth, the growth of growth rate has decreased in India, but it's still growing at about 5 to 6%, which is substantial. Now, what's actually the reason which is stopping the higher growth is in India is that is the cross subsidy in tariff. So industries are the highest paying. They are the cross subsidizing consumers. They cross subsidize residential and agriculture. So what happens is that they have to pay high, and what turns out cheaper for them is to have their own captive power plants. So they don't take from the grid, and these grid plants are very efficient, the ones which got the latest technology. So these efficient plants are lying wasted because it's a question of the tariff has been fixed as high. For them, it's a profit which matters, and they have got to survive in an international environment. So there is a program now, or in the Electricity Act, which is where draft amendments have been given the Electricity Act to replace cross subsidy by direct subsidy to the consumers. The consumers who are really required to be subsidized, just like we have the gas subsidy scheme in India now, where money, they pay the full amount, but money is put into their accounts so that effectively they pay less. So if you replace cross subsidy by direct subsidy to industries, this is going to have a huge amount of demand creation, because then the inefficient plants which they're using as captive plants, they would rather shut down, because if they're running a plant at around 6 rupees per unit, 5 to 6 rupees per unit, and they're getting grid supply now, presently they're getting at 8 or 9 or in some states 10 rupees. If they start getting it at the same rate, 5 or 6, then they don't need to maintain their own generating station sets. They need to employ people to run those sets, to maintain those sets. So it's going to have a large impact on the demand in India. But let's wait and see, because this is a draft amendment, and it takes at least a year for these amendments to be debated and for the act, sometimes more than that. Let's hope it can come within a year. As far as Nepal is concerned, I think also that their growth rate, the demand growth rate may have reduced, but I'm sure that they have far-flung places in Nepal, or some places where they're not getting 24/7 electricity as and when needed. Mr. Chandrakishore probably can say something on that, because he's located in Nepal. But my guess is that even in India, in some places, we do have electricity not being fed, only because the distribution companies are making losses, and these are low-paying consumers. So if it becomes unviable, they're already making losses, they'll make further losses. So they're not keen to actually, or they don't have a motivation to supply to these people. Although it would work, if these people pay the full tariff and they get direct subsidy into their accounts. So I guess it's electricity is such a flexible form of energy. It can be taken anywhere, and you can use it for so many things, for heating, cooking, appliances, everything. So maybe Mr. Chandrakishore can say on the demand being met in Nepal, whether it's fully met or not.
Okay, I'm also having the same question, since one of the participants has asked about Indo-Nepal relation, some of the external thing that is coming into play, like the China factor. So since Pankaj ji also have floated some of the things before Chandrakishore ji, so Amritesh Kumar has asked about Indo-Nepal relation, how this can evolve in terms of the bottlenecks, some of the problems. तो कुछ जो चिंताएं हैं भारत और नेपाल के संबंध में, किशोर जी, उसमें क्या ऐसे रास्ते निकाले जा सकते हैं कि जो इंटीग्रेटेड के संबंध भी प्रभाव है, और आगे जो बिजनेस का नए अपॉर्चुनिटी जा रहे हैं, खास करके जो एनर्जी ट्रेड का है, वो खास करके जो एक्सटर्नल जो एक प्रेशर आ रहा है बाहरी ये पावर से, जो चाइना वगैरह, क्या हो सकता है? आप ब्रीफली कुछ शब्दों में कहें, देन वी हैव 2 क्वेश्चन मोर। चंद्रकिशोर जी,
मैं कहूँ ऐसा है, और नेपाल और भारत का संबंध जो है वो सरकार द्वारा निर्मित संबंध नहीं है, वो हमारी परंपरा, इतिहास, संस्कृति के हम साझी विरासत रहे हैं। प्रकृति भी हमें जोड़ती है। मानसून आपकी हिंद महासागर से उठती है, हिमालय से टकराकर यहाँ की जमीनों को सिंचित करती है, यहाँ की नदियाँ आपके यहाँ जीवनदायिनी होती है, ये हमारा प्राकृतिक संबंध। अब नेपाल के संबंध में, नेपाल और भारत के संबंध में हमें एक बात और भी याद करना होगा कि आज के जमाने में जो कूटनीति है, जो सरकार की प्राथमिकताएं होती है, केंद्रीय सरकार निर्देशित करती है, तो सरकार की जो प्राथमिकता है, कोई जरूरी नहीं कि वो जनता की प्राथमिकता हो। और दूसरा ये है कि सरकार आती है और जाती रहती है, जनता तो है, जनता की अपेक्षाएं तो है। मुझे लगता है इस तरह के जनसंवाद से जनसंवाद बनता रहे तो हम कल के दिनों में सरकार पर भी एक दबाव डालना करेंगे कि वह जनता के अपेक्षा अनुसार का काम करे। दूसरा पॉइंट ये है कि जब आपका जो जगह है वह जगह छोड़ते जाएंगे तो दूसरा तो जगह लेगा ना, वो तो प्रकृति का नियम है। तो आपके यहाँ मीडिया में काफी नैरेटिव चला हुआ है, अरे फलाना हावी है, फलाना हावी है। वो हावी है तो पहले तो आप तो थे ना, आपकी क्या कमियां हुई कि जनता में असंतुष्टि है? मधेश में जो बॉर्डर से जुड़ा हुआ इलाका है, वहां के जनता दिल्ली से क्यों ठगी हुई महसूस करती है? तो आपकी कूटनीति जो है क्यों फिक्की पड़ती जा रही है? नेपाल और भारत का जन संबंध एक चीज है, दिल्ली के प्रति मधेश में व नेपाल के आम आदमी में, जमीन के आदमी में क्यों नाराजगी है? ये बात भी तो हमें समझना होगा ना, क्योंकि नेपाल में भारत की जो भी बड़ी योजनाएं हैं कोई समय पर पूरा नहीं होती है। भारत सरकार जो कमिटमेंट करती है उसे पूरा नहीं करती है, बड़ी लाल फिट्टा शाही है, कहना अधिक है, हम इम्प्लीमेंटेशन नहीं कर पाते हैं। तो यह जो स्वाभाविक नाराजगी है वो हम किसी तीसरे देश का नाम लेकर नहीं होते। हाँ, निश्चित रूप से आप जगह छोड़ती हैं, कोई दूसरा देश आ रहा है और वह यहाँ के लिए कितना अनुकूल है, प्रतिकूल है, वह भी यहाँ के आंतरिक विमर्श का विषय बना हुआ है। हमें लगता है कि भारत की खासकर टेलीविजन मीडिया ने भारतीय जनता के मन में पहली बार जहर उगलने का और बसों की से अलग की बात उगली है। जैसे आपके दिनेश कुमार मिश्रा जी, आप सभी जानते हैं, जल स्रोत विज्ञान, नदी विज्ञान, तो पिछले दिनों सोशल मीडिया में बार बार कह रहे हैं कि नेपाल से नदियां का पानी नहीं खुली जा रही है। तो उसका प्राकृतिक है, क्योंकि जो भी पानी का नियंत्रण 3-4 नदियों में है वो सब आपके हाथ में है, चाहे कोसी हो, शारदा हो, गंडक हो, उसकी चाबी आपके पास है। लेकिन भारत की मीडिया क्या कहती है? नेपाल ने पानी छोड़ दिया। नीतीश कुमार जी वही कहते हैं, अखिलेश जी थे तो वही कहते थे कि नेपाल ने पानी छोड़ दिया। तो हमें हमारे और आपके बीच में वस्तुपरक बात का होना होगा। जमीनी का लोग जब बात करेंगे तो अगर असलियत बात हो तो ना आपके यहाँ दुकान होनी चाहिए ना हमारे यहाँ दुकान होनी चाहिए। आपके यहाँ बिजली की समस्या है, हमारे यहाँ भी बिजली की समस्या है, ना रक्सौल में होनी चाहिए ना बीरगंज में होनी चाहिए। तो जन समझदारी से ही हम केंद्रीय सरकार पर दबाव बना सकते हैं और सरकार जो है जनता के रास्ते पर चलने के लिए बाध्य होगी। आज पश्चिम बंगाल की जनता की भावनाओं को देखते हुए बांग्लादेश से तो जमीन संबंधी समझौता तो हुआ ना। आज जो करतारपुर कॉरिडोर है, आज पंजाब की या सिख जनमत की भावना को देखते हुए करतारपुर कॉरिडोर को खोलने के लिए बाध्य होना पड़ा, जबकि दिल्ली और इस्लामाबाद के बीच में दुनिया तो है। मुझे लगता है कि इस तरह का जन संवाद से हमारी अपेक्षाओं को पूरा करने में बल मिलेगा।
जी, थैंक यू। मेरे पास 2 क्वेश्चन है, उसके बाद हम क्वेश्चन आंसर रैप करेंगे और उसका समिंग अप करेंगे पूरे वेबिनार को। तो फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन इज एड्रेस टू फ्रॉम उज्जवल सेठ टू आशुतोष जी, सॉरी अभिजीत घोष जी। So basically the West Bengal scenario. So what is the chance of West Bengal being benefited from Nepal indebted? So Abhijit Ghosh sir will be addressing this. And second question to Ashutosh ji, that is addressed from Avinash Rai. So that is, what are the challenges and possible way of strengthening the energy infrastructure connecting India and Nepal? So Ashutosh ji will be answering on infrastructure part, and Abhijit Ghosh ji will be talking on the West Bengal factor, which was addressed by
Can I start?
Yeah.
Abhijit. Regarding West Bengal situations, for Nepal, you know, the Kolkata is the nearest seaport, Kolkata and Haldia, and most of the trade being landlocked, Nepal used this transit point through Kolkata and Haldia. So therefore, always West Bengal, if the relations between Indo-Nepal improves, there will be improvement in the trade, not only through West Bengal, because West Bengal, Kolkata and Haldia is the nearest port. But at the same time, UP, Bihar, West Bengal, Sikkim, all the bordering states will benefit from the good relationship between the two countries. So therefore, to have benefits, first we have to build trust between the two countries, which we have, historically we have trust. Now for some situations, geopolitical situations, there may be some there may be some limitations or gaps, but in future I think both country will sit and solve it, and all the bordering state, not only West Bengal, will benefit out of that. Thank you.
Okay, over to you, Asutosh ji. Some infrastructure thing, how that can be leveraged
Yeah,
in terms of
thank
the
you.
Indo-Nepal trade.
So when it comes to infrastructure, first is that Nepal should have excess capacity or surplus generation to export to India. And with many hydro plants in pipeline from GMR and others, we expect that in coming future there will be surplus energy available with Nepal. And what is needed to upgrade the existing transmission lines, which is between India and Nepal, some are 33 kV, some are 132 kV, and then both when they meet for this under this power trade agreement, they should explore more and more option that what are the entry points which needs to be strengthened further. For example, if you there is a report by NREL, it's a think tank, which says that the Batwal-Gorakhpur transmission line can act as a suitable channel to fulfill the seasonal complementaries of demand and supply, as Nepal relies heavily on run-of-the-river project, whose output peaks in the monsoon when India farm sector sees a surge in power demand, right? And then at the same time, it says that Batwal is a strategic location for cross-border energy trade between India and Nepal because of its proximity and ability to connect with India, Uttar Pradesh state, and the Northern Regional Low Dispatch Center via Gorakhpur, where power demand is high during the monsoon. So this is one of the example. For example, NRL did this analysis and found what is the important location which needs to be strengthened. Such more location needs to be identified and needs to be strengthened. The infrastructure needs to be upgraded to reap the maximum social benefit from this trade. Apart from the financial benefit, the social benefit has to be maximum. And for that, both the country representative needs to sit together, understand the demand situation in the region, in the locations, and accordingly they should work on the infrastructure for a seamless transmission of electricity. Thank you.
Okay, thank you to the very engaging and thought-provoking session, and I'm very thankful to all the panel members. Before wrapping up the webinar or the session, I will briefly capture what we have come into the things. So one thing is some of the pointers which have emerged, and that is some of the pointers which we have already discussed at length. So I will be just going into the point form. So what we have deduced from this entire discussion is a robust sub-national energy trade policies of eminent priority, joint mission on removing barriers and RE development scenario, collaborative mechanism for infrastructure development, and creating enabling financing provision with private investor and financial institution, harmonization of operational procedure and creation of joint blue list, and also pragmatism of the to look at some of the things in practical manner. So essentially, the bilateral trade of energy and electricity requires not only the efforts of political establishment, governments and intergovernmental bodies, and but also distribution companies, business industry association to make it a sound business proposition for both sides, right? And also to catalyze it as a social initiative for ensuring energy security for all the masses at the bottom of the pyramid. So this is the high time to make a strategic investment policy frameworks and enterprising efforts for changing the energy paradigm in favor of the renewables for realization of energy access and energy security in the region. So the sub-national trade shows us a path which can be instrumental in reducing poverty, improving health, promoting economic growth, and ensuring well-being of the people at the large and across the fence. So this is the idea which we are floating and we are also promoting. Thank you to the panel, and some of the things which I will that whatever we have recorded that will be also uploaded on YouTube, and that will be accessible to all. And some of the questions we could not take because we have the time limitation, but we actually crossed that time for more than 25 minutes. So I'm sorry for that. But since some of the panel discussion was so much engrossed in terms of some of the nitty-gritty details, so we could not prevent for the sake of the good discussion. So some of the unanswered question can be related to in terms of the email form, even if that is addressed to some panel, because we will get back to the panel and also relate to the person who has asked this. And some of the things which whatever we have, that will be a 2 or 3 page note report back that will be also relayed to all the participants and speakers. So again, I'm on the behalf of SEED thankful to all the participants having some showing the patience, and also to the esteemed panel speakers, especially Pankaj sir, which actually we had not thought about it initial level when we had, but since the discussion was going in such a direction that we thought about that coming into some of the insight. And also I'm thankful to Abhishek ji as well, who has also been our mentor for the last period of some of the years. So I'm also thankful to all the participants and the panel speaker for making it a good webinar, and hopefully we will be coming on to the next segment of the seminar on mid-August. Probably it's on 11th August. So that will be also have a good discussion. And so over to Ashwini, if anything to say. If not, then I can say that we are ending this session formally.
I think Arvindji, you have covered most of the things. I would only like to thank all the participants for participating in this event, and we hope this sort of association and this sort of efforts would definitely lead us to a designated ambition of having good renewable energy trade between the two nations, especially at the subnational regions. Thank you for joining us, and we'll get back to you with all the reports and all soon.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. We are formally ending this webinar.